Why hotel projects decisions don't hold. Most teams think their decisions are under control. There are meeting notes, updated drawings, approval records. Everything looks documented. And that's exactly why no one questions it. But when something goes wrong on site and you try to trace the decision back, you can find it. It exists, just not in a form anyone can actually use. That's when you realize the problem isn't that decisions are missing. It's that they don't survive the project. I'm Helen Tsui. In this video, I will show you 3 places where decisions exist, but fail to carry forward into execution. Why they break as they move across teams, and what it takes to make a decision actually hold on a real project. So instead of thinking a decision is done once it's approved, you will start seeing whether it can actually be used by the next person in the process. Here is what it looks like in a real project. A decision gets made in a meeting, is discussed, aligned, and agreed. The drawing gets updated. The revision gets issued. Everything looks complete. Then, weeks later on site, the same issue comes back. The installation doesn't match what was intended. The contractor is working off something slightly different. The supplier has interpreted it another way, so the team goes back to check. And the decision is there, in the meeting minutes, in the drawing set, but no one is using it the same way. The decision exists, but it didn't travel. The issue isn't that decisions are missing. It's that they are in pieces. A decision starts in a meeting, then gets reduced into meeting minutes, then translated into drawings, then interpreted again by the contractor or supplier. At each step, something shifts. Details get simplified, context gets removed, assumptions get added. By the time it reaches site, it's no longer the same decision. It's a version of it, and that's where control breaks. Not when the decision is made, but when it changes form as it moves through the project. This is why the same issue keeps repeating even when teams believe it has already been resolved. A lighting position gets adjusted in design, but the reflected ceiling plan doesn't fully align with the electrical layout. A joinery detail is clarified, but the dimension used on site come from a previous revision. A material decision is approved, but the supplier references an earlier sample during production. None of these are major failures. But across 200 rooms, small differences compound. Alignment drifts, gaps appeared, things feel slightly off everywhere. And no single person can point to where it breaks. Because the dimension exists, just not in a form that holds. The first place is the meeting. Decisions are discussed and agreed verbally. But what gets recorded is often a summary, not the full instruction. Key conditions are missing. Dependencies are not captured. So what moves forward is incomplete. The second place is the drawing stage. Updates are made, but not always across every related drawing. Different teams reference different versions, so the same decisions appear differently depending on where you look. The third place is at site and production. Contractors and suppliers don't work from meetings. They work from drawings, schedules, and instructions that are clear enough to act on. If a decision isn't usable at that level, they fill the gap. They interpret, they adjust, and that's where variation enters. Not because they're wrong, but because the decision didn't reach them in a usable form. Fixing this doesn't require more meetings. It requires making decision usable. 3 simple shifts. The first, define decision in their final form. Not just what was agreed, but what someone on site needs to actually build it. The second, check dimensions at the point of use. Not just when they are made, but where they are actually applied. Can the contractor use this directly? Can the supplier build from this without guessing? If not, the decision isn't complete. The third, treat translation as part of the decision. Moving from meeting to drawings to site is not admin. It's where control is either kept or lost. If no one owns that translation, the decision will drift. The shift is simple. From thinking, a decision is done when it's approved, to understanding, a decision is only complete when the next person can use it without reinterpretation. That's what makes it hold. When decisions start holding something, changes across the project, coordination becomes cleaner, rework reduces, teams stop revisiting the same issues. Not because fewer decisions are made, but because each decision actually carries through to execution. Control isn't about volume. It's about continuity. So when a decision goes missing on a project, it rarely disappeared. It was made, just not in a form the next person could use, not carried forward, not translated, not held in a way that survived pressure. And that's where project starts pulling apart, not because no one decided, but because no one could follow the decision all the way through execution. From what I've seen across hotel projects in Asia, this is where control quietly breaks, not at the point of decision, but at the point where that decision needs to be used by someone else. That's the difference between a project that holds and one that slowly comes apart under pressure. I'm Helen Tsui. This is Hotel Story Asia. In the next video, we move one step further. Because even when decisions are tracked properly, something else still goes wrong. There are moments in a project where the answer already exists, not in the drawings, not in the meeting notes, and not in the approval chain, but with someone who has already seen this problem before. And yet, that knowledge almost never enters the project when it still has the power to change the outcome. That's where we go next.